In this video, we're going to talk about essentially what is factoring. I know we dive into factoring, we're like, oh man, I'm taking this math class, teacher's asking me, I got to factor these problems. But what is it? When we factor, what are we actually doing? What factoring actually is, factoring is the reverse of multiplication. So we're looking at the factored version of things. Oftentimes in higher level mathematics, it can really help us to solve very complicated problems by a much easier method, just by using some factoring. Now the deal is, I think it's easier to think about when we look at like numeric examples like this. So an example for this one, if I looked at 3 times 5, for instance, if I asked you to multiply those, you would give me the answer of 15, right? 3 times 5 is 15. But a way to look at 2 factors of 15 or to factor these, you could think of it as 3 times 5, breaking it up into 2 things. These are considered factors of, when you multiply this, considered the product. And so we're going to apply that same concept to when we're looking at polynomials. In this chapter, we're going to look at, or in this course, we're actually going to look at all polynomials and factoring polynomials completely. So generally, just preceding this chapter, just before it, we actually have learned how to multiply. So if you say you took a Math 104 course here at Mid, it would be Math 104. Generally, the last thing we end on it now is the operations on polynomials. So you've learned how to multiply these by the distributive property. So if I looked at a polynomial like this and I multiplied this by distributive property, I get x squared minus 3x plus 2 more x's minus 6. Combine your middle terms, you get x squared minus x minus 6. But now in this chapter of the text, and what we start out with in this class is we learn how to factor. So we're going to go in the reverse step. And then we're going to learn later on in the chapter, the last section, actually, we're going to learn how to solve equations by factoring. So here's the deal. I'm looking at this. I have x squared minus x minus 6. I want to factor this thing. We'll show you how to look at this and write it as 2 things multiplied. And so that's what factoring is. Factoring is the reverse of multiplication. So instead of writing it in this form, it's reversing it and writing it as 2 things multiplied, or 3 things, or how many factors there are to factor something completely. And then so some of the future videos we're going to talk about how we approach factoring, determining by the number of terms it has, and looking for the GCF always first. That's the first thing you always have to do. Then we're going to learn how to solve equations by factoring.